female is going to be armed with a knife.
Prosecutors say Isabella Guzman stabbed her mother 79 times in the family's bathroom last week. She said nothing as she walked right past them.
Alright, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome back to the channel. And in today's video, it's going to be a pretty wild one, as we're going to be talking about why a murderer went viral on TikTok and became sort of an icon for individuals to stan over. Yes, people were and are actually standing this girl for reasons you guys will be baffled by when I get to telling you later in this video. Now, Isabella Guzman of Aurora, Colorado was only 18 back in the summer of 2013 and was living with her parents, Mom Yeonmi Hoy and stepdad Ryan Hoy. And as is tradition of most teens on the edge of adulthood, Isabella fought with her mother pretty much every day. You guys already know how it usually goes, especially between moms and daughters. Now, her parents were divorced when she was younger, with Isabella moving in with her real dad at the age of 14. But it was when she later on moved in with her mom, shared with her new stepdad, that things began to take a turn for the worse. When moving in with her mom, Isabella went to Overland High School before dropping out and spending most of her time between her boyfriend's place and other friends that she said she had. She was a pretty problematic girl, you know, exhibiting bad behavior and pretty much disrespecting and disobeying her mom and stepdad. But apparently, based on my own research, she was pretty cool with her biological dad, which is pretty typical with most dads and their daughters anyway. And now, while it was well known by her parents that Isabella often struggled with mental health issues, it seems as though that she received little to no support for her disorders, which turned out to be a critical lapse in judgment since her mom paid the ultimate price for her negligence. However, Isabella's relationship with her mother had reached a breaking point in the late summer of 2013 with frequent fights, arguments, and constant bad behavior that had driven her mother to the point of wanting her to be kicked out of the house. You know, banned from the premises, excommunicated from her life. Yeah, it was that bad. The two often fought, with her stepfather needing to intervene consistently to prevent things from getting out of control. And by the way, I think I should add that Yeonmi Hoy, Isabella's mom, she met Ryan Hoy, her new stepfather, through infidelity. Like, apparently, while her mom and dad were still married, her mom decided that, you know, she needed to get a little ding-a-ling on the side. Like, she had her little side piece and was partaking in extracurricular activities with another man, which eventually destroyed the marriage between Isabella's mom and dad. And Isabella was furious because she didn't want anyone replacing her real dad, which is understandable, and I genuinely believe that that may have been a contributing factor to why Isabella decided to do what she is about to do to her mother in this video. Now, the day before the murder, the tension between Isabella and her mother came to a peak as an incredibly big argument happened between the two. An argument that, after my research, I found out that it had something to do with Isabella's mom finding out that she's been sneaking in her boyfriend into the house when she wasn't home and having him leave through her bedroom window when she knew her mom was coming home from work. Like, as she was pulling into the driveway, this guy would sneak out of the window. And apparently, her mom found out about this because of the next door neighbors seeing him do this often whenever Yeonmi would come home from work, and eventually told the mother about what her daughter and her boyfriend were doing when she wasn't home. Yeah, they basically snitched on her. However, Isabella's stepfather, Ryan, later reported that in the midst of this argument, that things got out of hand really quickly, with Isabella growing even more threatening and disrespectful while screaming at her mother and even spitting in her face. Yeah, that's insane. And after the feud was done, Yeonmi Hoy, the mother, was so afraid of her daughter that she asked her husband, Ryan, to remain close to her throughout the evening and asked him to sleep next to her that night in fear of her safety. And the very next day, on Wednesday, August 28th, 2013, it was reported that Isabella sent an email to her mom saying that, and I quote, "You will pay," according to official criminal records. Isabella's mother, fearing for her safety even more now, decided to call the police to her house, telling them that her daughter was threatening to harm her. And then she immediately left the house until, you know, she thought it was safe to return. However, when the police officers got there, they spoke with Isabella and they were like,
"Hey, yo, Isabella, listen up. You gotta stop all these problems you're causing your moms before we're gonna be forced to escort your ass down to the county jail. Do you understand?"
Isabella was like,
"Oh my God, please don't bring me to jail. I could never survive in a place like that. It was a mistake, and I promise I won't do it again. I'm so sorry if I caused any trouble.
And then the officer was like,
Yeah, I thought so, because you were definitely not ready for the smoke that I was about to bring.
I think I should add that though, none of that dialogue was accurate, by the way, and was completely made up for comedic effect. Yeah, sorry about that. In reality though, the officers that did arrive to the house told Isabella that her mom had every right to throw her out of the house if her behavior didn't improve, and pretty much gave her a soft warning, which I don't know why they did, considering the context of the situation and Isabella sending some scary ass email to her mom saying only 3 words, "You will pay." Like, what? How could they just brush something off like that with a warning is beyond me. But that's what they did, and then the officers proceeded to contact the mother, telling her that they spoke with Isabella and gave her a warning. So it's safe to return to the premises now. So much for relying on police officers. However, when Yeonmi returned home, she was still scared of her daughter, so she decided to call her ex-husband and Isabella's biological father, Robert Guzman, to come and talk to his daughter so that he can try and calm her down from her explosive anger. And based on an interview with a news station, he said that, "I went to talk to her because her mother was worried and wanted me to talk to Isabella. So I went to talk to Isabella and we sat down in the backyard looking at the trees and the animals, and I started to talk to her about the respect that people should have for their parents, and I was trying to let her know that she should be obedient to her parents, not rebellious, that she should try to listen more, and everything was going fine." He also said, "In the conversation, I thought I made progress, but obviously it didn't do anything because hours later, this thing happened." Her dad, Mr. Guzman, would later go on to testify in the courts that Isabella had seemed calm and understanding when he left the house after their little talk. But little did he know that just a couple hours later, his daughter was about to do the unthinkable to his ex-wife. And even Ryan Hoy, her stepdad, reported that his stepdaughter seemed calm after speaking to the police and her father. And he believed that Isabella had moved on past her anger with her mom. So he left her alone while he waited for his wife to return home from work at her design studio, where she often spent like 12 hours a day working. And by the way, this design studio that she owns herself, the studio's name is Bella's Portrait Studio, and obviously the name Bella was inspired by her daughter, Isabella. I thought I'd just add that in there because it seemed like it would be interesting to tell, especially considering what's about to happen next. So, Isabella's mom returned home from work that night at around 9:30 p.m.-ish and greeted her husband after a long day at work. And she told him that she was heading upstairs to take a shower, and he sat down to eat his dinner. But after a couple of minutes, he heard a strange thumping noise coming from the upstairs bathroom and his wife calling his name. So he rushed upstairs as fast as he could to see what the hell was going on. And as he approached the top of the stairwell, he came to find that the bathroom door was closed with the shower running inside. A million thoughts were running through his mind at this point. Frightened and anxious, he began to open the door, briefly catching a glimpse of his stepdaughter inside the bathroom before she slammed it shut and locked it. And then as soon as he looked down, he saw a pool of blood flowing out from under the bathroom door. I mean, can you guys imagine how this guy must have been feeling in that very moment? The conclusions he must have been coming to in this horrifying moment he thought could only take place in movies. He quickly snapped out of it though and ran downstairs to call 911, telling the operator that he believed his wife was being attacked. And while he was on the line with the operator, he returned to the closed bathroom door and heard his wife's chilling final words, "Jehovah." Suddenly, after a few seconds, the bathroom door quickly opened, and out stepped Isabella, dressed in only a bra and shorts. She was holding a knife dripping with blood and staring ahead with a blank expression on her face. And without saying a word, she turned away, walked downstairs, and left the house. And now, completely out of his mind, the stepdad, Mr. Hoy, stepped into the bathroom to discover the horrifying scene. He sees his wife's naked body on the floor, a baseball bat beneath her, and a gaping wound across her throat. She wasn't moving and was stained in blood from the slashes of her multiple stab wounds. He told the dispatcher that he thought she was already dead as her eyes stared into nothingness. It was as if her soul was snatched right out of her body. Being there in that moment, seeing the woman that he loved lay lifeless on the floor, must have felt like the end of the world. Eventually though, emergency responders arrived to the house after Mr. Hoy's 911 call, and they went upstairs, saw the body, examined it, and pronounced Yeonmi dead on the scene. And after taking Mr. Hoy's statement, police immediately began a manhunt for Isabella Guzman. Now, Isabella had fled the property and had made her way to a nearby supermarket, where she told the clerk she had been raped and was trying to escape her attackers. Like, it's actually disgusting how she can just so casually lie about rape like that after killing her own mother. But, you know, I guess that's the least of her priorities. She then proceeded to beg the employees to not call the police, fearing that her rapist would find her, which would make no sense to me if I were an employee at that store. Like, if you really were raped and just escaped your rapist, you should want me to call the police to help catch him, right? Like, it's, you know, simple logic. Unfortunately though, those employees had a collective IQ of a newborn baby on its way out of its mother's womb, and that led them to believing Isabella's obvious lie. However, her little escapade came to an abrupt ending the morning after someone called 911 at around 11:30 a.m. to report a body inside of a car in the parking garage on South Parker Road. Arriving officers found the car, but no one was inside. So, you know, after receiving that report, the Aurora police decided to call in some undercover detectives dressed like regular people to go out and try and find Isabella. One witness named Glenn Petty, who worked in a nearby office building, said he saw a man dressed like a motorcycle gang member who turned out to be an undercover officer, walking into the parking garage as a young woman walked out. Petty said the man and the woman briefly spoke, and then she turned and walked away into a parking lot. The first undercover officer followed the woman and was soon joined by two other plainclothes officers as they surrounded the woman, who was carrying a plastic shopping bag. Quote, "Suddenly, all three officers pulled guns, and the woman sat down next to a bush on a raised parking lot median," Petty said. So obviously at this point, Isabella's cover was blown, her journey had come to an end, it was all over for her. But, you know, that didn't stop her from trying to buy her way out of this situation. So what she tried to do was tell the undercover officer that they had the wrong person, and that her name was actually Samantha Gonzalez from Cincinnati, and that she had nothing to do with the situation. But then the police officer that was talking to her showed her her ID, and when he held it up, the picture on the ID was obviously her, 100%. But she still tried to play it off by saying,
"It looks like me, but I can assure you it's not."
As if anybody with half a brain cell would fall for that one. Oh wait. Luckily for us though, the police officers on this case weren't as dumb as the employees from the supermarket that I mentioned earlier in this video, and proceeded to make a successful arrest on Isabella Guzman. Now, the trial of Isabella Guzman for the gruesome murder of her mother began with her pleading her innocence by trying to make an insanity defense. She was trying to claim insanity off the bat. In other words, she tried using her mental health as an excuse for killing her own mother. And guess what? It worked. And the judge presiding over this case promptly ordered her to attend clinical observation at a local hospital in order for doctors to determine if she was actually insane or not. And during this time, a post-mortem of her mom's body was released to the public, indicating the severity of her mom's injuries. And it was brutal. It said that she had been stabbed exactly 151 times by her daughter. Yes, 151 different times in and out of her mom's body. Like, how does someone even have the stomach to do something like that? Like, that is just some straight up demonic shit right there. And based on the info that I've read, 79 of those stab wounds were exclusively directed at the mom's face and neck alone. So given the incredible damage that was done to her mom's body, she obviously had to have a closed casket at her funeral, assuming she wasn't cremated. They also revealed that Isabella had struck her mother with a baseball bat. Yeah, the baseball bat that I mentioned earlier in this video, before viciously stabbing her to death. And honestly, this all makes me sick to my stomach. Now, as soon as people were made aware of the details of what Isabella had done to her own mother, the sheer brutality of this horrendous case began to pick up a lot of public attention, with friends, family members, and neighbors in shock at the news that Isabella had committed such a cold-blooded crime. Like, nobody who heard about this story and actually knew Isabella could believe it at first. But when the report about Isabella's state of mind was received by the court, The results were scary. Doctors were convinced that Isabella was suffering from severe paranoid schizophrenia and was not in control of her murderous actions on the night of the killing. And according to this article, it says, typically, there would be another hearing to prove insanity, but in this case, the prosecution said the evidence is clear that the suspect was mentally ill. Therefore, her insanity plea was accepted by the judge and she was not sent to prison, but a mental health facility. Judicial District Attorney George Brockler said, "Look, the job of the district attorney is to pursue justice. And at first brush, when you look at this case, you see a horrific and violent murder by a daughter towards her mother. I've never seen a person with that many stab wounds. She stabbed her over 150 times. So you want that person to be held accountable. But our system is a system that is not just conviction-laden or prison-laden, but justice-bound. And you have to look at this component, which is mental health." Brockler also said that the state hospital had a longer than normal opportunity to review Guzman's mental health. Quote, "They had an opportunity to administer and tweak the drugs that might affect her psychology," he said. The end conclusion was that she suffers from a mental illness that kept her from being able to form the ability to know right from wrong, both legally and morally. And during the testimony, Dr. Richard Pounds said Guzman was diagnosed with paranoid schizophrenia. He said, "There were obvious signs of hallucinating. She was staring into space, having conversations with people who weren't present, and she was laughing at herself." And when asked how long Isabella might be at the Colorado Mental Health Institute, Brockler said, "It will be until the state doctors determine that she is no longer a risk or threat to herself or the community. It could be a year, 2 years, or it could be the remainder of her life." So yeah, we don't know if she'll ever be getting out. Although she is a murderer and what she did was disgusting, according to these professionals, she was mentally ill. And if you're mentally ill, you know, as a child growing up especially, without having the resources to aid your mental stability, things like this can happen. So I'm gonna have to kind of blame the parents in this one. With all that being said though, Isabella was found not guilty by reason of insanity and immediately released to a mental health facility in Pueblo, Colorado, where she remains to this day. Pretty crazy story, isn't it? And I'm pretty sure a lot of you are probably speechless right now. This is crazy. But we're definitely not done yet, because we gotta talk about why Isabella Guzman actually went viral on TikTok more than 7 years later after the initial murder of her mother. And based on my research, this is the reason why. It's because some random person on TikTok decided to create a short little video showing Isabella walking into a courtroom, and this was the courtroom where she was finally being charged for her crimes. But during this short little TikTok video of Isabella's courtroom appearance, where she's walking into the courtroom dressed in an orange prison jumpsuit and shackled, she sat down with a news camera pointed at her. She then turns to the camera and stares at it for a couple of seconds before sarcastically smiling and then frowning and sticking up her index finger as she returns to her original position. And all this happening while the song Sweet But Psycho by Ava Max is playing in the background. And after this TikTok video went viral, the internet went wild with tons of people on TikTok in shock that this cute little innocent looking girl could commit such a savage crime, you know, after finding out about what she did to her own mother. Like, for some reason, you know, people seem to think that being cute or attractive should deter you from committing crimes, and that type of behavior should only be reserved to the ugly mugs of society. I mean, it should be common sense that someone's physical attractiveness has no impact on whether or not they can do stuff like this. But here we are. People on TikTok are acting as if they can't think critically, as usual. But here's where it gets better, because after she went viral on TikTok, people actually started copying her movements. Like, let me explain. People actually saw this video, right? And started trying to mimic the movements she was making at the camera. And it's actually pretty bizarre. Like, some people genuinely think it's cool to admire a mentally ill murderer because she looks cute. Honestly, I gotta admit, man, we're some weird ass people. Like, humans, we are weird. We can be very weird sometimes. Luckily though, a good amount of people have used her rise in popularity to raise awareness about the obvious harm that untreated mental health disorders can cause to society, and you know, we're condemning the people who were idolizing this chick. But of course, the people who are standing a literal killer couldn't care less about any of this criticism, because if they did, they wouldn't have doubled down on the amount of support they seem to have given this girl. Yeah, I'm sorry. Society has some degenerates in it, but there's nothing you can do about it. Isabella said during a CBS 4 interview that she was ready to rejoin society and was no longer mentally ill, which I doubt. She also stated that she was not herself on that fateful August night and has since recovered to the point that she no longer possesses a threat to society. Yeah, I'm not so sure about that one. And it seems like I'm not the only one with this train of thought, since tons of people on social media seem to think that she is still an active threat to the public and have threatened to riot if the state ever decides to release Isabella back into society. But yeah, the not guilty verdict and subsequent resurgence of Isabella Guzman's case has sparked many conversations about people on social media romanticizing criminals based on their looks, regardless of the crimes they've committed. And we all know that's, never gonna end, since criminals have been romanticized by horny guys and girls alike since the dawn of time. I mean, just look at the guys like Richard Ramirez or Ted Bundy and the amount of fangirls they had and still do. Like, they definitely aren't playing by the same rules that their less attractive counterparts are. In any case though, let me know your thoughts and opinions down below, as I love the conversations you guys spark down there. Things do tend to get really spicy down there. And if you want to support me, go on over to my Patreon page. I have 3 different tiers. Tiers that offer your name being shouted out at the end of each video. You can unlock exclusive 4K wallpaper for desktop and mobile, early access to all my videos, and even an exclusive Discord rank that shows your support for me. So if any of that interests you, go on over and see what you like, and if it checks out, join up. But yeah, with that being said, it's your guy Destiny. Thank you for watching, and until next time, stay safe out there.